Hi.
That's so sorry. Uh, I got lost. I'm gonna read
I'm
this.
sorry.
It's okay. I'm gonna read this part again. That is what would have happened, child, with a stolen apple. It is not what will happen now. What I give you now will bring joy. It will not, in your world, give endless life, but it will heal. Go, pluck her an apple from the tree. For a second, Diggory could hardly understand. It was as if the whole world had turned inside out and upside down, and then, like someone in a dream, he was walking across the tree, and the king and queen were cheering him, and all the creatures were cheering too. He plucked the apple and put it in his pocket. Then he came back to Aslan. "Please," he said, "may we go home now?" He had forgotten to say thank you, but he meant it, and Aslan understood. So do you want me to read chapter 15? So we end it, or what?
Hey, yeah. Let's go all the way.
Okay.
And this will be the end of the book.
This is the end of the book.
All right.
Then we can start the next book.
Exactly.
All right. Chapter 15. The end of this story and the beginning of all the others. You need no rings when I am with you, said the voice of Aslan. The children blinked and looked about them. They were once more in the wood between the worlds. Uncle Andrew lay on the grass, still asleep. Aslan stood beside them. Come, said Aslan. It is time that you went back, but there are two things to see to first. A warning and a command. Look here, children. They looked and saw a little hollow in the grass, with a grassy bottom, warm and dry. When you were last here, said Aslan, that hollow was a pool, and when you jumped into it, you came to the world where a dying sun shone over the ruins of Charn. There is no pool now. That world is ended, as if it had never been. Let the race of Adam and Eve take warning. Yes, Aslan, said both the children, but Polly added, But we're not quite as bad as that world, are we, Aslan? Not yet, daughter of Eve, he said. Not yet. But you are growing more like it. It is not certain that some wicked one of your race will not find out a secret as evil as the deplorable world and use it to destroy all living things. And soon, very soon, before you are an old man and an old woman, great nations in your world will be ruled by tyrants who care no more for joy and justice and mercy than the Empress Jadis. Let your world beware. That is the warning. Now for the command. As soon as you can, take from this uncle of yours his magic rings, and bury them so that no one can use them again. Both the children were looking up into the lion's face as he spoke these words, and all at once, they never knew exactly how it had happened. The face seemed to be a sea of tossing gold in which they were floating, and such a sweetness and power rolled about them and over them and entered them that they felt they had never really been happy or wise or good or even alive and awake before, and the memory of that moment stayed with them always, so that as long as they both lived, if ever they were sad or afraid or angry, the thought of all that golden goodness and the feeling that it was still there, quite close, just round some corner, or just behind some door, would come back and make them sure deep down inside that all was well. Next minute, all three of them, Uncle Andrew now awake, came tumbling into the noise, heat, and hot smells of London. They were on the pavement outside the Ketterleys' front door, and except that the witch, the horse, and the cabby were gone, everything was exactly as they had left it. There was the lamp post, with one arm missing, there was the wreck of the hansom cab, and there was the crowd. Everyone was still talking, and people were kneeling beside the damaged policeman, saying things like, "He's coming round," or "How do you feel now, old chap?" or "The ambulance will be here in a jiffy." Great Scott, thought Diggory, I believe the whole adventure's taken no time at all. Most people were wildly looking around for Jadis and the horse. No one took any notice of the children, for no one had seen them go or noticed them coming back. As for Uncle Andrew, what had been the state of his clothes and the honey on his face, he could not have been recognized by anyone. Fortunately, the front door of the house was open, and the housemaid was standing in the doorway, staring at the fun. What a day that girl was having! So the children had no difficulty in bustling Uncle Andrew indoors before anyone asked any questions. He raced up the stairs before them, and at first they were very afraid. He was heading for his attic and meant to hide his remaining magic rings, but they needn't have bothered. What he was thinking about was the bottle in his wardrobe, and he disappeared at once into his bedroom and locked the door. When he came out again, which was not for a long time, he was in his dressing gown and made straight for the bathroom. "Can you get the other rings, Paul?" said Diggory. "I want to go to Mother." "Right. See you later," said Polly, and clattered up the attic stairs. Then Diggory took a minute to get his breath, and then went softly into his mother's room, and there she lay, as he had seen her lie so many other times, propped up on the pillows with a thin, pale face that would make you cry to look at. Diggory took the apple of life out of his pocket, and just as the witch Jadis had looked different when you saw her in our world instead of in her own, so the fruit of that mountain garden looked different too. There were, of course, all sorts of colored things in the bedroom, the colored counterpane on the bed, the wallpaper, the sunlight from the window, and Mother's pretty pale blue dressing jacket. But the moment Diggory took the apple out of his pocket, all those things seemed to have scarcely any color at all. Every one of them. Even the sunlight looked faded and dingy. The brightness of the apple threw strange lights on the ceiling. Nothing else was worth looking at. You couldn't look at anything else, and the smell of the apple of youth was as if there was a window in the room that opened on heaven. Here's a picture of him giving the apple to his mom.
You want to take? Wait, let me see it again. Nice. You gonna take a picture of it?
Yeah, I'll take a picture of it.
Thank you.
I'll put it in the Discord.
Gracias.
De nada. "Oh, darling, how lovely," said Diggory's mother. "You will eat it, won't you, please?" said Diggory. "I don't know what the doctor would say," she answered, "but really I almost feel as if I could." He peeled it and cut it up and gave it to her piece by piece, and no sooner had she finished it than she smiled, and her head sank back on the pillow, and she was asleep, a real, natural, gentle sleep, without any of those nasty drugs, which was, as Diggory knew, the thing in the whole world that she wanted most. And he was sure now that her face looked a little different. He bent down and kissed her very softly, and stole out of the room with a beating heart, taking the core of the apple with him. For the rest of that day, whenever he looked at the things about him and saw how ordinary and unmagical they were, he hardly dared to hope. But when he remembered the face of Aslan, he did hope. That evening he buried the core of the apple in the back garden. Next morning, when the doctor made his usual visit, Diggory leaned over the banisters to listen. He heard the doctor come out with Aunt Letty and said, "Miss Ketterly, this is the most extraordinary case I have known in my whole medical career. It is like a miracle. I wouldn't tell the little boy anything at present. We don't want to raise any false hopes, but in my opinion—" Then his voice became too low to hear. That afternoon he went down the garden and whistled their agreed secret signal for Polly. She hadn't been able to get back the day before. "What luck!" said Polly, looking over the wall. "I mean about your mother." I think it's going to be all right," said Dickory. "But if you don't mind, I'd really rather not talk about it yet. What about the rings?" "I've got them all," said Polly. "Look, it's all right. I'm wearing gloves. Let's bury them." "Yes, let's. I've marked the place where I buried the core of the apple yesterday." Then Polly came over the wall, and they went together to the place. But as it turned out, Diggory need not have marked the place. Something was already coming up. It was not growing so that you could see it grow as the new trees had done in Narnia, but it was already well above ground. They got a trowel and buried all the magic rings, including their own ones, in a circle around it. About a week after this, it was quite certain that Diggory's mother was getting better. About a fortnight later, she was able to sit out in the garden, and a month later, that whole house had become a different place. Aunt Letty did everything that Mother liked. Windows were opened, frowsy curtains were drawn back to brighten up the rooms. There were new flowers everywhere and nicer things to eat. And the old piano was tuned, and Mother looked up her singing again, and had such games with Diggory and Polly that Aunt Letty would say, "I declare, Mabel, you're the biggest baby of the three." When things go wrong, you'll find they usually go on getting worse for some time. But when things once start going right, they often go on getting better and better. After about 6 weeks of this lovely life, there came a long letter from Father in India, which had wonderful news in it. Old Great Uncle Kirk had died, and this meant, apparently, that Father was now very rich. He was going to retire and come home from India forever and ever. And the great big house in the country, which Diggory had heard of all his life and never seen, would now be their home. The big house, with the suits of armor, the stables, the kennels, the river, the park, the hothouses, the vineries, the woods and the mountains behind it, so that Diggory felt just as sure as you that they were all going to live happily ever after. But perhaps you would like to know just one or two things more. Polly and Diggory were always great friends, and she came nearly every holidays to stay with them at their beautiful house in the country. And that was where she learned to ride and swim and melt and bake and climb. In Narnia, the beast lived in great peace and joy, and neither the witch nor any other enemy came to trouble that pleasant land for many hundred years. King Frank and Queen Helen and their children lived happily in Narnia, and their second son became king of Archenland. The boys married nymphs, and the girls married wood gods and river gods. The lamp post, which the witch had planted without knowing it, shone day and night in the Narnian forest, so that the place where it grew came to be called Lantern Waste. And when many years later another child from our world got into Narnia on a snowy night, she found the light still burning. And that adventure was, in a way, connected with the ones I have just been telling you. It was like this: the tree which sprang from the apple that Diggory planted in the back garden lived and grew into a fine tree, growing in the soil of our world, far out of the sound of Aslan's voice, and far from the young air of Narnia. It did not bear apples that would revive a dying woman as Diggory's mother had been revived, though it did bear apples more beautiful than any others in England, and they were extremely good for you, though not fully magical. But inside itself, in the very sap of it, the tree, so to speak, never forgot that the other tree in Narnia to which it belonged. Sometimes it would move mysteriously when there was no wind blowing. I think that when this happened, there were high winds in Narnia, and the English tree quivered, because at that moment the Narnia tree was rocking and swaying in a strong southwestern gale. However, that might be, it was proved later that there was still magic in its wood. For when Diggory was quite middle-aged, and he was a famous learned man, a professor, and a great traveler by that time, and the Ketterleys' old house belonged to him, there was a great storm all over the south of England which blew the tree down. He couldn't bear to have it simply chopped up for firewood, so he had part of the timber made into a wardrobe, which he had put in his big house in the country. And though he himself did not discover the magic properties of that wardrobe, someone else did. That was the beginning of all the comings and goings between Narnia and our world, which you can read of in other books. When Diggory and his people went to live in the big country house, they took Uncle Andrew to live with them, for Diggory's father said, "We must try to keep the old fellow out of mischief, and it isn't fair that poor Letty should have him always on her hands." Uncle Andrew never tried any magic again as long as he lived. He had learned his lesson, and in his old age he became a nicer and less selfish old man than he had ever been before. But he always liked to get visitors alone in the billiard room and tell them stories about a mysterious lady of foreign royalty with whom he had driven about London. "A devilish temper she had," he would say, "but she was a dem fine woman, sir, a dem fine woman." The end.
This is good. 15?
Huh?
15?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I said that was chapter 15.
Yeah, that was the end.
Man, you read fast. That was good though. That was really good. All right, man, we are here. My goodness. So we're in the next book.
Yeah.
And the only thing is, you beat me. I was for sure thinking I was going to get there before you.
To the next book?
Looks like you beat me.
Yeah, I did.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I'm in a part of my house that the signal kind of goes in and out. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay.
Hmm.
Couldn't hear you for a second. It like went out. I'm sorry.
Mm.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, give me one second. I'm moving from like a different section of my house. Give me one second. Because it kind of goes out, and I'm not sure why, but I think it's like the pipes or it must just be something in the walls that cuts out the Wi-Fi in this area.
Mm.
Give me one second. All right.
All right, let me add this picture into the books.
Can you hear me better now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. You can still hear me?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Man, that Verizon commercial really gets stuck in my mind doing this. Can you hear me now? Good. Good.
Good.
It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
You would like walk the entire US doing that commercial.
right.
Man, this man's still walking and acting. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Good.
Good.
Let's see. All right, cool. So now, let's see. I thought we were going to get to my second book before yours,
But you didn't.
but it's whatever. It's whatever.
It is.
Did you just try to rub that in?
Well, I
Did you
did
just say,
start.
but you didn't?
I did say that. That is what I said. Yeah.
Hello?
Hello.
Is it cutting out again?
It must be for you.
Yeah, but you can still hear me.
Mm-hmm.
That's so weird. I don't know why it does that. Yeah. All right, you can hear me now?
I've been able to hear you the whole time.
Yeah, hold on. Okay. I'm gonna sound so crazy on this recording. Can you hear me now?
No,
Verizon.
you sound just like the one guy,
The Verizon, right.
Verizon guy. Can you hear me now?
I'm gonna see if they're hiring. All right, let's
Yeah,
see.
I guess you should.
All right. All I gotta do is say, can you hear me now 1,000 times? All
You
right.
also are supposed to say good, that's
Oh
what
yeah, good. Gotta work on that. All right, let's see. All right, we're at 62%, so we're not too far. All right, I may need to go back just a little bit.
actually can you pause the recording? I need
Absolutely.
something.
Recording. All right. All right, so we have just finished chapter one of book two of your book. Now we're heading into mine.
And we just finished book 1 of
We just finished book one. Yes. It's amazing, by the way. Like your reading has been astounding.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Astounding.
I'm glad you enjoy my reading.
Yeah.
I enjoy reading.
You've been really good.
I'm a good reader.
Yeah, you are. Let's see. We got E over here talking mess in the group chat. What's all right? Ignore it. Ignore it. You're on a call right now. Ignore it.
Yeah, you're reading to me and to everybody else who's listening on
Yeah.
YouTube.
So E, if you hear this, stop distracting us.
I mean, you're the one that's being distracted.
Yeah, because she's instigating. All right.
Perfect. I got
Did you?
uh Sam sent me the pictures.
Hey, awesome.
Forward them to you.
All right. So I went back a little bit. So I'm not sure if you remember, but there was Trey and Carly. Uh, Carly was attacked.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of start there because that's kind of where we kind of left off.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Time stands still, reads mind, stumbles over one idea after another, and the long hanging second suspended between them. The three of them hover in it. Carly, the hunter, Reed. He feels the line drawn in, pulling them tighter and tighter until he can't breathe. The hunter's claws gleam in the moonlight. Carly's tears glitter on her cheeks, huge eyes swallowing Reed whole. He simply stands there, so torn by indecision, he is unable to do anything. When the moment breaks, Reed has no time left to act, nor the strength to get to Carly before the inevitable. The hunter pounces in one fluid motion, while Reed's tortured mind still tries to figure it out. He hears Carly scream, lunges forward to try to save her, only to be yanked off balance and pulled away. His instincts take over again, but only barely. Reed runs, throat tight, eyes welling with welling with moisture as the girl he barely knows dies in silence in the dark. Reed immediately thinks of Lucy. She must be dead by now. Too slow, too weak. There's no way his fragile and needy sister could possibly survive anything like this. A sob rips from his chest, making it hard to breathe. Harley, Monica, Lucy, around and around in a circle, joined by Mustache and Scar, and the two boys whose names he never knew. So much death and loss, and only fear to keep him moving. There has to be more to life again. It can't just go on like this. One endless run until the hunters finally get around to killing him. He speeds along on autopilot, letting the kids choose their path, forgetting the world he runs, forgetting the world he runs through, ignoring the times he stumbles and almost falls, the sounds and smells of the forest, the gnawing hunger in his stomach. He stops when they make him, runs when they urge him on. Reed is lost inside himself for a long time and can't find a way out. Can't find a way out again. Doesn't want to, really. It's safer to hide inside himself. He's never been a quitter. His father would be so disappointed. He knows that. But there's only so much Reed's mind can take, and he has reached his limit. The rising light of the sun brings him back to the present in the moment. He curses the warmth of morning for pulling him out of limbo. The other kids try to talk to him, to keep him with them, but Reed doesn't hear their words. Not really. Every sound hits him like a muffled whine. He finds a place to collapse and huddles by himself, well apart from the others, shaking from weariness. His leg muscles jump and twitch under his hands. He lets himself sink down, back against a tree, to watch the sun rise and wish he were dead. In that moment, Reed would gladly trade places with Carly, wishes it had been him. She relied on him, and he let her down, let her go. He can never, ever forgive himself. He runs over the whole thing in his mind, the freeze frame examination driving him deeper and deeper into despair. Reed feels her hand in his slickness of her skin, how her palm and fingers just slid out of his grasp as he swerved. He tried so hard to pull her along with him.
He should have held her more tightly, but he didn't. Reed let her go, and she fell and rolled away into the darkness, and the hunter killed her. It is all his fault. He feels Layla's hand on his shoulder, but he shrugs her off. It's not your fault. She's reading his mind. He looks up and sees her for the first time in the light. She is very pale, from her skin to almost white hair, to her clear blue eyes. She stands in front of him, between him and the sun. The glow of it makes her look like an angel. But despite the comparison, he refuses to allow her to absolve him. I know. I did what I had to. I left her behind. He is such a liar. But he can't let the others know what he does in his heart. That he could have saved Carly if he had just acted in time. Could have, should have. All his fault. You would have died too. She sees right past him, obviously. Time to be more harsh, to get his message across. Just leave me alone. It emerges in a half growl out of his dry throat. He is satisfied with the raspy quality of it. He sounds dangerous, like a lone wolf. That's what he needs to be from now on. No more thinking of others. The realization is so clear to him, it chases away the guilt and shame and drives him further into anger. He waits a moment before doing as he asked. Tiny part of him that still feels human wishes she would come back, while the rest of him draws itself around him like a shield and reminds him they left him behind once. Another, sorry, I'm getting a call. Wait, give me 1 second.
Mhm.
My mom, I'm just going to shoot her a text.